The great hall of the Galactic Council stretched upward like a cathedral made of light and metal. Thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds sat in circular rows that reached toward the domed ceiling. The air smelled of different atmospheres mixing together, filtered and balanced so everyone could breathe. Translators hummed quietly, turning strange languages into words each species could understand. Ambassador Kethrak stood at the center of it all. He was old even by Valerian standards. His scales had faded from their once bright blue to a dull gray. His forearms trembled slightly as he gripped the speaking platform. He had served on the council for 87 standard years. In all that time, he had never felt such fear. Honored members of the council, Kethrax began, his voice amplified across the vast chamber. I come before you today not as a representative of my world, but as someone who has seen the future. I have seen what happens when we make the mistake I am here to warn you about. Several council members shifted in their seats. Some whispered to their aides. The Broxian delegate openly yawned, showing 3 rows of sharp teeth. 200 years ago, Kethrax continued, my people encountered a young species. They called themselves humans. We had a disagreement over a small system on the border of their space. 3 planets, nothing special. Some minerals, some water, the kind of dispute that happens every day in the galaxy. Get to the point, old one, called out Admiral Voxtar from the Krellian section. The Krellian was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, with armor-plated skin and eyes like black stones. The council has important matters to discuss. Kethrax's scales rippled with emotion. The point, Admiral, is this. We attacked one of their outposts. A small thing. 47 humans died. We thought they would negotiate. We thought they would accept our terms. We thought they would be reasonable. The old ambassador's voice grew quieter, forcing everyone to lean forward to hear. We were wrong. The humans did not negotiate. They did not accept terms. They hunted us. For 20 years they hunted us. They tracked down every ship that had been part of that attack. Every captain. Every soldier. Every officer who gave the order. Surely an exaggeration, someone called out. I wish it were, Kethrax said. The humans have a phrase. They say we do not forgive, we do not forget. They mean it. My people learned this truth when the humans found our admiral hiding on a moon 3 star systems away. 15 years after the attack. They found his second-in-command in a monastery on a holy world. They found soldiers who had fled to the most remote corners of the galaxy. The hall was quiet now. Even those who had been whispering stopped. The humans never stopped, Kethrax said. Not until every single one was found. 20 years. Do you understand? 20 years of pursuit. Other species would have given up. Other species would have accepted apologies or payment. Not humans. Humans hunt forever. Admiral Voxtar stood up, his massive form casting shadows across the lower seats. With respect, Ambassador, this is nonsense. Fear-mongering from a frightened old creature. I have studied the humans. They are peaceful traders. Their military is small. They pose no threat to any major power. That is what we thought, Kethrax said softly. The Krellian Empire has conquered 47 star systems. Voxtar boomed. We have crushed rebellions that would make your human vendetta look like a child's tantrum. I do not fear a species that hides behind trade agreements and cultural exchanges. Several council members nodded. The humans were known for their art, their music, their literature. They ran successful merchant fleets. They had signed every peace treaty offered to them. They seemed harmless. Please, Kethrax said, and there was desperation in his voice now. Please listen. I have brought evidence. Historical records from humanity's homeworld. They have a concept called blood feuds. Families that war with each other for generations. They tell stories about hunting enemies to the ends of their world. They celebrate those who never give up, who never surrender. He activated a holographic display. Images appeared above the council floor. Ancient human warriors. Medieval castles under siege. Documents showing criminal trials that lasted decades. Look at this, Kethrax said, pointing to one image. This human was a war criminal on their own world. His people hunted him for 50 years. 50 years. They found him when he was an old man, hiding in another country under a false name. They put him on trial. They never stopped looking. Ancient history, Voxtar scoffed. Primitive behavior from a primitive past. It is not primitive, Kethrax insisted. It is fundamental to who they are. Humans do not let go of their dead. They do not forget their fallen. To attack a human is to accept that somewhere, somehow, someday they will find you, and they will make you answer for it. The council leader, a floating crystalline being named Lysander, spoke for the first time. Ambassador Kethrax, we appreciate your concern. However, humanity has been part of the galactic community for nearly 2 centuries now. They have shown no aggressive tendencies. They have participated in peacekeeping missions. They have mediated disputes. Your warning seems outdated. Because no one has truly hurt them, Kethrax said. The incident with my people was small. A border dispute. Imagine what they would do if someone really harmed them. If someone attacked their civilians, their children, then we simply won't, Lysander said calmly. Problem solved. Thank you, Ambassador. Now shall we move on to the trade negotiations with the Zipheron Collective? Kethrax stood there trembling. Around him the council moved on. Delegates turned to their data pads. Conversations resumed. His warning had been heard and dismissed. Only a few beings seemed troubled. A young Valerian aide approached Kethrax as he left the speaking platform. Master, they did not listen. They never do, Kethrax said quietly. Not until it is too late. In the Krellian section, Admiral Voxtar laughed with his officers. Foolish old creature, trying to scare us with bedtime stories. Should we be concerned, Admiral? Asked a younger officer. Concerned? About the humans? Voxtar showed his teeth in what passed for a smile among his kind. I have seen the size of their fleet. I have analyzed their weapons. They are no threat to the Krellian Empire. No, Lieutenant, I am not concerned at all. The younger officer nodded, but he looked at the images still floating in the holographic display. Images of humans pursuing justice across decades. He felt a small flutter of doubt, but said nothing. Later that evening, Kethrax sat in his quarters, staring out at the galaxy beyond his window. His aide brought him a warm drink, trying to comfort him. You did what you could, the aide said gently. It was not enough, Kethrax replied. Someone will test them. Someone always does. And when they do, the galaxy will learn the truth. Humans are not warriors by nature. They are not conquerors. They are hunters. And once you become their prey, you will never escape. What can we do? We can only hope that when it happens, the lesson is not too terrible, that the price for learning is not too high. Far away on the edges of known space, Admiral Voxtar reviewed reports on his datapad. The Krellian Empire needed resources. The expansion had been costly. They needed new colonies, new slaves, new wealth. His tactical officer pointed to a star system on the map. This one, sir. Human colony. Outer territories. Minimal defenses. Rich in rare minerals. Population? Voxtar asked. About 3,000. Mostly miners and their families. Military presence? 1 patrol ship. Old model. 6 defense platforms. Voxtar studied the data. It was perfect. An easy target. Rich resources. Minimal resistance. The kind of raid the Krellian Empire had conducted hundreds of times before. We will take it, he decided. Prepare the fleet. Sir, they are human. After the council meeting. After the council meeting where a frightened old fool told ghost stories? Voxtar interrupted. The humans are weak. They will protest. They will file complaints. They will do nothing, just like all the others. The tactical officer hesitated, then nodded. Yes, Admiral. When do we strike? Soon, Voxtar said, studying the colony on the map. It was called New Harmony, a peaceful name for a peaceful people. Very soon. He did not know it, but in making this decision, Admiral Voxtar had just sealed the fate of his entire civilization. He had ignored the warning. He had dismissed the danger. He had made the one mistake that the galaxy would remember for centuries to come. He had decided to attack the humans. In his quarters, Ambassador Kethrax woke suddenly from a dream. Or perhaps a vision. He saw fire in space. He saw worlds burning. He saw a species learning the hardest lesson in the galaxy, that some beings once provoked will never stop hunting you. He tried to go back to sleep, but could not. The future was coming, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. The warning had been given. The warning had been ignored. Now the galaxy would pay the price for not listening. The sun was rising over New Harmony when the alarms began to scream. Maya Chen was eating breakfast with her parents when the windows started rattling. Her father jumped up from the table, his face going pale as he looked at his communication device. Get to the shelter, he said quietly. Now. Dad, what? Maya began, but her mother was already pulling her toward the door. Outside, the sky was full of shapes. Massive ships, dark and angular, dropping through the atmosphere like falling mountains. The defense platforms in orbit were already firing, tiny flashes of light against the dawn sky. But there were too many ships. Far too many. New Harmony was a mining colony, home to 3,000 people who had come to the outer edges of human space looking for a better life. They had built schools and parks. They had farms under biodomes. They had children who played in the streets. They thought they were safe so far from the troubles of the galaxy. They were wrong. The first missiles hit the north sector at exactly 0647 local time. Maya felt the ground shake as explosions bloomed orange and red across the settlement. The single human patrol ship in orbit, the Defiant, fought bravely but was outnumbered 20-1. Its crew sent out one final message before their ship broke apart. New Harmony under attack. Unknown hostile force. Send help. Then their signal went dead. Maya and her family reached the underground shelter along with hundreds of others. The shelter was meant to protect against accidents or meteor strikes, not military attacks. The walls shook as explosions walked across the colony above them. Children cried. Adults tried to stay calm, but Maya could see the fear in their eyes. "It will be okay," her mother whispered, holding Maya close. "The defense force will stop them." But Maya's father said nothing. He had been a soldier once before coming to New Harmony. He knew what was happening above them. His jaw was tight, his hands clenched into fists. The Krellian ground forces landed 3 hours after the first strike. They were efficient and brutal. They had done this before on dozens of worlds. They knew how to break resistance quickly. The human defenders fought hard. Miners who had never held military weapons grabbed whatever they could find. Security officers in light body armor faced Krellian warriors in full combat suits. They fought in the streets, in the buildings, at every doorway. They made the Krellians pay for every meter of ground. It did not matter. There were simply too many. By afternoon, the Krellians controlled most of the colony. They began gathering the survivors, separating them into groups. The healthy adults were marked for slavery. The children were to be processed. The elderly and injured were considered unnecessary. Admiral Voxtar himself came down to the surface to inspect his prize. He walked through the burning streets of New Harmony, pleased with how quickly his forces had secured the colony. The resistance had been fiercer than expected, but nothing his warriors could not handle. "Losses?" he asked his second officer. 37 dead, 112 wounded, within acceptable parameters. "Good, and the resources?" "The mines are intact. We estimate the mineral wealth at..." A gunshot rang out. A human, an older woman with gray hair, had somehow kept a weapon hidden. She fired at Voxtar, the bullet ricocheting off his armor. Krellian guards immediately cut her down. Voxtar walked over to where she had fallen. She was still alive, gasping, blood spreading across the ground beneath her. "Stubborn," he observed, "like animals fighting for their den." "Should we make an example, Admiral?" asked his officer. "Yes, bring me 10 prisoners." Random selection. They brought 10 humans from the holding area, men and women, young and old. They forced them to kneel in the street while the other prisoners watched. Maya's father was among them. He had been separated from his family when the Krellians stormed the shelter. Maya and her mother were still below ground, not knowing what was happening above. "This is what happens when you resist the Krellian Empire," Voxtar announced, his voice amplified so all could hear. "This is the price of defiance." The executions were quick, professional, 10 shots. 10 bodies falling. Then the Krellians opened the shelters and began bringing up the rest of the survivors. Maya climbed out of the underground with her mother, squinting in the bright sunlight. The first thing she saw was smoke. The colony was burning. The second thing she saw was bodies in the street. The third thing she saw was her father lying among them. Her mother screamed. She tried to run to him, but Krellian guards held her back. Maya stood frozen, unable to process what she was seeing. Her father, who had made her breakfast that morning. Her father, who had taught her to identify minerals. Her father, who had promised everything would be okay. He was gone. "Move along," a Krellian soldier growled, pushing them toward the processing area. The final count was 3,047 colonists at the start of the attack. By evening, there were 2,983 dead. 512 were taken as slaves, loaded onto Krellian transport ships. 52 managed to hide or escape into the wilderness beyond the colony. Maya and her mother were among those taken. They were herded onto ships like cargo. The Krellians were not cruel for the sake of cruelty, but they were not kind either. The prisoners were simply resources to be processed and transported. As the ships lifted off, Maya looked down at New Harmony for the last time. Her home was a smoking ruin. Bodies lay in the streets. Everything she had known was destroyed. She saw Krellian soldiers placing explosive charges in the remaining buildings. They were going to erase New Harmony completely, leaving nothing but rubble and ash. No evidence. No witnesses except those they took with them. But they missed something. One of the colonists who had escaped, a teenager named Marcus Webb, had a long-range communicator. As he hid in the hills watching his home burn, he sent out a signal. It would take weeks to reach human space, traveling through relay stations and communication networks. But it would get there. The message was simple. New Harmony destroyed. Krellian attack. 3,000 dead. Admiral Voxtar stood on the bridge of his flagship as they entered faster-than-light travel, leaving the New Harmony system behind. The raid had been a complete success. They had the minerals they came for. They had new slaves. The cost had been minimal. "Send a report to the Empire," he ordered. Another successful acquisition of resources. Minimal resistance encountered and neutralized. His officers congratulated each other. This was what the Krellian Empire did best. They took what they wanted from the weak. They had done it hundreds of times before. They would do it hundreds of times again. "Any pursuit expected?" asked the tactical officer. Voxtar laughed. "From the humans. They will file a complaint with the Galactic Council. They will demand an investigation. They will do nothing of consequence. They never do." But 3 weeks later, when Marcus Webb's message reached human space, Voxtar's certainty began to crumble. The message arrived at a relay station in the outer colonies. The station operator, a woman named Lieutenant Sarah Chen, read the message 3 times before she believed what she was seeing. Then she forwarded it through every priority channel available. New Harmony destroyed. Krellian attack. 3,000 dead. The message reached Earth 12 hours later. It arrived at military headquarters at 300 local time. Duty officers woke the Chief of Defense. He read the message once, then immediately contacted the President. By dawn, every human in the Sol system knew what had happened. The news spread like fire through dry grass. New Harmony. 3,000 dead. Families murdered. Children killed. Colonists who had been trying to build a new life, snuffed out by an alien empire that saw them as nothing more than obstacles to resources. The reaction was not what the galaxy expected. There were no protests in the streets. No angry speeches. No demands for council intervention. Instead, humanity went quiet. Across every human world, people stopped what they were doing. They watched the news in silence. They listened to the names of the dead being read out. They saw the images Marcus Webb had managed to send before his communicator died. Images of burning buildings, of bodies in streets, of Krellian ships departing with their cargo of slaves. Maya Chen, her mother, and 500 others were being transported to a Krellian slave processing facility. They did not know that their names had been recorded. They did not know that every human who had been taken was being documented, catalogued, remembered. They did not know that across human space something was changing. The Terran Federation government held an emergency session. Every representative attended. Every military officer was called in. For 6 hours they debated and discussed behind closed doors. When they emerged, they issued a single statement. Remember New Harmony. Remember them all. That was all. No threats. No demands. Just those 2 sentences. But across human space, the response was immediate. Every shipyard began working 24 hours a day. Every factory retooled for military production. Every reserve soldier received activation orders. Every military academy accelerated its programs. Humanity was preparing for war, but not the kind of war the galaxy understood. They were not preparing for conquest or territory. They were preparing for something much more focused, much more terrible. They were preparing to hunt. Ambassador Kethrax heard the news on his homeworld. He sat in his garden, holding the report with trembling hands. New Harmony, 3,000 humans dead. Krellian attack. His aide found him there an hour later, tears running down his scaled face. They did not listen, Kethrax whispered. I warned them. I warned them all. What will happen now? The aide asked, though he already knew the answer. The humans will hunt them, Kethrak said. They will hunt them forever, and this time the galaxy will watch and learn the lesson I tried to teach them. In the Krellian Empire, Admiral Voxtar received a message from human space. It was addressed to him personally. He opened it, expecting protests or negotiations. Instead, there was only a list. Names. 3,047 names. Every person who had died at New Harmony. And at the bottom, 3 more names. Admiral Voxtar and every officer under his command who had participated in the attack. Below that, one sentence, "We are coming." Voxtar stared at the message. Then he laughed, though the sound was forced. "Empty threats," he told his officers. "The humans are trying to scare us." But late that night, alone in his quarters, Admiral Voxtar found he could not sleep. He kept thinking about Ambassador Kethrax's warning. About humans who hunted for 20 years. About a species that never forgot their dead. He told himself it was nonsense. He told himself the Krellian Empire was too strong, too powerful. He told himself there was nothing to fear. He was wrong about all of it. The hunt was about to begin. 18 months after the destruction of New Harmony, the Krellian Empire received its first real taste of human vengeance. It started quietly, almost invisibly, like a disease spreading through the body before symptoms appear. The first target was a remote Krellian mining outpost on the edge of their territory. 300 soldiers guarded the facility, which processed rare minerals from an asteroid field. It was not an important location, just one of hundreds scattered across Krellian space. The attack came at night, local time. There was no warning, no declaration, no demand for surrender. Human ships simply appeared at the edge of the system, their approach masked by the asteroid field's interference. They struck with precision that shocked the Krellian defenders. The outpost was destroyed in 47 minutes, every building leveled, every ship disabled, every communications array shattered. The human forces left before Krellian reinforcements could arrive, but they left something behind, a monument. In the center of the destroyed outpost, carved from solid metal, were 3,047 names. Every person who died at New Harmony. When Admiral Voxtar heard about the attack, he dismissed it as a lucky strike. "One outpost," he said to his officers. "They destroyed one miner facility and think they have accomplished something." "Admiral, the precision of the strike suggests significant planning," his tactical officer warned. "They knew exactly where to hit, exactly how to maximize damage." "So they got lucky with intelligence," Voxtar replied. "Increase security at our outer posts. The humans will tire of this game soon enough." But the attacks did not stop. They accelerated. A Krellian supply depot vanished overnight, its entire garrison gone. A training facility was reduced to rubble. A communications relay was destroyed, cutting off an entire sector from command. Each time, the human forces struck and disappeared before significant resistance could organize. This was not conventional warfare. The humans were not trying to conquer territory or destroy the Krellian military. They were doing something else, something more methodical. They were cutting the Krellian Empire apart piece by piece. Like a surgeon removing diseased tissue, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. The Krellian ambassador demanded action against human aggression. Human Ambassador James Morrison stood to respond, his face expressionless. "Aggression?" Morrison said quietly. "The Krellian Empire murdered 3,000 civilians. They took 500 more as slaves. They destroyed an entire colony. And you call our response aggression? The humans are violating every galactic law regarding warfare," the Krellian ambassador shouted. "They ignore ceasefire requests. They refuse to negotiate. This is barbaric." Morrison pulled up a holographic display. Images of New Harmony appeared, burning buildings, bodies in streets, Krellian soldiers executing prisoners. The council chamber went silent. "This is barbaric," Morrison said, gesturing to the images. "What we are doing is justice. The Krellian Empire will answer for every person who died at New Harmony. Every single one. The Galactic Council demands that humanity cease all military operations immediately," declared Council Leader Lysander. "You must come to the negotiating table. This vendetta cannot continue." "It will continue," Morrison said simply. It will continue until every person responsible for New Harmony has been brought to justice. You can demand whatever you like. We will not stop." He turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and one more thing. Any species that provides aid or shelter to those we are hunting will be considered hostile. Choose your friends carefully." The council erupted in outrage after Morrison left, but their anger meant nothing. Humanity had withdrawn from all galactic institutions. They had stopped trading with species that protested their actions. They had made it clear that they were fighting this war alone, and they did not care what the galaxy thought about it. Ambassador Kethrax watched from his seat, saying nothing. He had tried to warn them. Now they were learning. The human strategy became clearer over the following months. They were not just destroying military targets. They were hunting specific individuals. Every soldier, every officer, every person who had been at New Harmony was marked. Humanity had compiled a list, and they were working through it with terrifying efficiency. Krellian soldiers who had participated in the raid found themselves hunted wherever they went. Human intelligence was everywhere. Operatives infiltrated Krellian worlds, gathering information, tracking targets. When they found someone on the list, human special forces teams would strike. A Krellian captain who had commanded ground forces at New Harmony was found on a busy city world, shopping in a market. He was surrounded by thousands of civilians, believing himself safe in the crowd. Human operatives stunned him with a dart, dragged him into an alley, and disappeared with their prisoner before security forces even realized something had happened. A lieutenant who had overseen the executions was pulled from his home in the middle of the night. His family woke to find him gone, with only a note left behind. New Harmony remembers. The Krellian Empire tried to protect their people. They moved soldiers to secure facilities. They provided bodyguards. They relocated families to hidden worlds. Nothing worked. The humans always found them. One captured Krellian soldier, facing trial for war crimes, was asked how the humans kept finding their targets. He laughed, a bitter sound. "You do not understand. They have been preparing for this since New Harmony. They have spent 18 months doing nothing but hunt us. They have no other priority, no other goal. How do you hide from someone who will search forever?" Voxtar watched his command structure collapse around him. Officers who had served under him for decades were disappearing. Some were captured, some simply vanished, never to be seen again. The psychological effect on his remaining forces was devastating. "They cannot keep this up," he insisted to his remaining officers. "Eventually their economy will collapse. Their people will tire of war. They must stop sometime." But deep down, he knew the truth. Kethrax had been right. The humans would never stop. The Krellian Emperor called Voxtar to the homeworld. The massive throne room was filled with military leaders and government officials. Everyone looked worried. The war was not going as anyone expected. "Admiral, your actions have brought disaster upon the Empire," the Emperor said coldly. "The humans are tearing us apart. Our economy is in ruins. Our people live in fear. Allies are abandoning us. All because you attacked one insignificant colony." "Your Majesty, I only did what the Empire has always done," Voxtar protested. "We took resources from a weaker species. We have done this hundreds of times, with species that were reasonable," the Emperor roared. "With species that would accept compensation or negotiate peace. Not with humans. Never with humans. Did you not hear Ambassador Kethrax's warning?" "I thought it was exaggeration, Your Majesty." "It was not." The Emperor slumped on his throne. "What do the humans want? What will make them stop?" "They want us, Your Majesty," said the intelligence officer. "Every person who was at New Harmony. They have made this clear. They will accept nothing less." "Then give them what they want," the Emperor said. "Hand over everyone who participated in that cursed raid. End this nightmare." Voxtar felt ice in his veins. "Your Majesty, you cannot." "I can and I will. The Empire is more important than the lives of 3,000 soldiers. You and everyone under your command will be turned over to the humans." The throne room erupted in argument. Some supported the Emperor's decision. Others called it cowardice, betrayal. But everyone knew the truth. The alternative was the slow destruction of their entire civilization. Voxter was placed under arrest that night, but he did not go quietly. Using connections built over decades of military service, he escaped with several hundred of his officers. They fled into the outer reaches of Krellian space, then beyond into neutral territory. The Emperor sent a message to humanity. We will cooperate. We will hand over those responsible. Please end this war. Humanity's response was delivered by Ambassador Morrison in a galactic broadcast. We appreciate the Emperor's cooperation. However, the war will continue until all perpetrators are captured. Those who fled will be found. There is nowhere in this galaxy they can hide. The hunt intensified. Human forces now had the cooperation of the Krellian Empire itself, providing intelligence on those who had escaped. The galaxy watched in horror as humanity demonstrated what they called total war. A Krellian refugee ship carrying families of soldiers who had served under Voxtar was stopped at a neutral station. The families were not harmed, but every soldier was pulled off and arrested. Humanity made it clear they would not harm innocents, but they would never stop hunting those on their list. The Xinthian Confederacy made the mistake of granting asylum to a group of fleeing Krellian soldiers. Humanity gave them one warning: hand over the soldiers or face consequences. The Xinthians, a proud warrior culture themselves, refused. Human blockades appeared around Xinthian space within a week. No trade in, no trade out. The Xinthians prepared for war, expecting a military assault. It never came. The humans simply waited. Weeks passed. The Xinthian economy began to collapse. Food shipments could not get through. Medical supplies ran low. After 2 months, the Xinthians quietly handed over the Krellian soldiers. You have made your point, the Xinthian ambassador said during the handover. Your determination is noted. Our determination is eternal, replied the human officer, accepting the prisoners. Remember that. After the Xinthian incident, no species offered shelter to fleeing Krellian soldiers. The message was clear: do not get between humans and their prey. Marcus Webb, the teenager who had sent the warning from New Harmony, had been rescued by human forces early in the war. He was given a choice: return to safety or join the hunt. He chose to hunt. Now 19 years old, he served on a tracking team, helping locate Krellian soldiers. Why do you do this? A reporter asked him during an interview. You survived. You could go home, live your life. Marcus looked at the camera with eyes that seemed much older than his years. I watched my home burn. I saw my neighbors murdered. My best friend's mother was taken as a slave. Every person at New Harmony was someone's child, someone's parent, someone's friend. I do this so they are not forgotten. I do this so that every person who hurt them knows that humans never forget. The interview was broadcast across the galaxy. Many species watched it with growing unease. They were beginning to understand something about humanity that Kethrax had tried to warn them about. Humans were not the most powerful military force in the galaxy. They were not the most advanced technologically, but they had something more dangerous than weapons or ships. They had memory. They had the absolute refusal to let their dead be forgotten, and they would burn down the galaxy before they would let an injustice stand. 5 years after New Harmony, the score stood at 2,847 captured or confirmed dead. 3,000 Krellian soldiers had participated in the attack. Only 153 remained free. And somewhere in deep space, on a hidden ship moving through the dark between stars, Admiral Voxtar looked at a map of the galaxy and realized there was nowhere left to run. Behind him was the relentless pursuit of humanity. Before him was an infinite void. He had spent 5 years running. 5 years looking over his shoulder. 5 years living in fear. How long will they keep hunting? Asked one of his officers, a young soldier who had been barely old enough to serve when New Harmony happened. Voxter thought about Kethrax's warning so many years ago. He thought about the human he had seen, the old woman who had fired at him even knowing it meant her death. He thought about the message he had received. We are coming. Forever, Voxtar said quietly. They will hunt us forever. And somewhere in human space, teams of hunters reviewed intelligence reports, updated their databases, and prepared their next operation. The list grew shorter every month, but it would never be complete until every name was crossed off. Maya Chen, now 17 years old, sat in a recovered memory care facility on Earth. She had been rescued from Krellian slavery 2 years earlier. The humans had found the slave processing facility and liberated everyone taken from New Harmony. Some, like Maya's mother, had not survived, but many had. A counselor sat with her. "How are you feeling today, Maya?" "I want to help," Maya said. "I want to help find them. The ones who did this. You are young. You have your whole life ahead of you." "I know," Maya said. "That's why I want to spend it making sure they answer for what they did. All of them." The counselor saw the determination in her eyes and knew that arguing would be pointless. Another hunter was born. The cycle would continue until justice was done. The galaxy was learning Kethrax's lesson. But for many, the lesson had come too late. 10 years after the destruction of New Harmony, the Krellian Empire was a shadow of its former self. Their economy had collapsed. Their military was broken. Billions of Krellians who had nothing to do with New Harmony suffered because their leaders had made one terrible mistake. The great cities of the Krellian homeworld, once gleaming monuments to imperial power, now struggled with poverty and despair. Trade had stopped. Allies had abandoned them. The proud warrior culture that had conquered 47 star systems was reduced to begging for aid from the very council they had once dominated. And still, the humans hunted. Admiral Voxtar had been running for a decade. He had hidden on 17 different worlds. He had changed his appearance with surgery. He had used false identities and forged documents. None of it mattered. The humans always found him. He was on a remote mining world in neutral space when they finally caught him. He had been working as the equipment operator under a false name, trying to disappear among the thousands of workers who came and went. He should have been invisible, but human intelligence networks had infiltrated everywhere. A worker noticed something odd about the way Voxtar moved, the military precision in his actions even when trying to hide. The worker reported it. Human agents investigated. Within a week, they had confirmed his identity through genetic markers he did not even know he was leaving behind. The capture happened at dawn. Voxtar woke to find his room surrounded by human special forces. He reached for a weapon, then stopped. There were too many of them, and he was too tired. He had been running for 10 years. Part of him was almost relieved it was over. "Admiral Voxtar," said the team leader, a woman with cold eyes, "you are under arrest for war crimes against humanity. You will be transported to stand trial." "Just kill me here," Voxtar said. "We both know how this ends." "No," the woman replied. "The families of New Harmony deserve to see you answer for what you did. The galaxy deserves to see justice served. You do not get the mercy of a quick death." They transported him to Earth in a secure ship. The journey took 2 weeks. During that time, Voxtar saw the dedication of his captors. They did not mistreat him. They followed every rule of proper detention. But in their eyes, he saw something that chilled him more than any torture could have. They saw him not as a person, but as an incomplete task, something that needed to be finished. His capture was not about revenge or anger. It was about completing a job they had started 10 years ago. The cold efficiency was more terrifying than any rage could have been. The trial was held on Earth in the rebuilt city of New Geneva. The courtroom was designed to hold thousands of observers. Every seat was filled. Billions more watched across human space and throughout the galaxy. This was not just a trial of one Krellian admiral. This was a message. Maya Chen sat in the front row. She was 24 now, having spent her entire young adult life working with human intelligence to track down the perpetrators. Her mother had died in Krellian slavery, but Maya had survived. She had promised herself she would see this through. The prosecutor was a serious woman named Elizabeth Torres. She had lost her brother at New Harmony. For 10 years she had prepared for this moment. "Admiral Voxtar," Torres began, "you are charged with 3,047 counts of murder, 512 counts of enslavement, destruction of civilian property, violation of interstellar law. How do you plead?" Voxtar stood in the defendant's area, surrounded by force fields. He looked at the faces watching him. Humans, all of them. He saw the relatives of the dead. He saw the survivors. He saw the hunters who had chased him across the galaxy. "I was following orders," he said. "I was serving my empire." "That is not a plea," the judge said coldly. "Guilty or not guilty?" "What does it matter?" Voxtar replied. "You have already decided. This trial is just theater." "No," Torres said, stepping forward. "This trial is justice, something you denied to the people of New Harmony. They did not get to plead their case. They did not get to defend themselves. They were murdered without trial, without mercy, without reason. You will receive the justice you denied them. The trial lasted 6 weeks. The prosecution presented evidence of everything that happened at New Harmony. They showed footage from the attack. They played recordings of the victims. They brought survivor after survivor to testify about what they had endured. Marcus Webb, now 27, took the stand. I watched from the hills as they destroyed my home, he said. I saw them murder my neighbors. I was 15 years old, hiding behind rocks, unable to help. I have spent 12 years of my life making sure everyone responsible is found. Admiral Voxtar gave the orders. He watched the executions. He called us animals. Well, Admiral, animals do not hunt across the galaxy for 12 years. Animals do not build civilizations. Animals do not remember their dead. We are not animals. We are humans. And we never forget. The courtroom was silent after his testimony. The defense tried to argue that Voxtar was following Krellian military doctrine, that the raid was a standard operation, that he could not have known the humans would react so strongly. Ignorance is not an excuse, Torres countered. Ambassador Kethrax warned the galaxy about what would happen if anyone attacked humans. The warning was given before the attack on New Harmony. Admiral Voxtar chose to ignore that warning. He chose to attack civilians. He chose to murder innocents. Those were his choices. Now he must face the consequences. On the final day of the trial, before the verdict was delivered, Voxtar was given a chance to speak. He stood slowly, looking older than his years. A decade of running had aged him. I have nothing to say that will change anything, he began. But I will say this to all the species watching. The humans warned us. Ambassador Kethrax warned us. We did not listen. We thought ourselves powerful. We thought ourselves safe. We were wrong. He looked directly at the camera broadcasting to the galaxy. If you are watching this, learn from my mistake. The humans do not wage war the way we understand it. They do not seek territory or resources. They seek justice, and they will pursue it forever. Do not attack them. Do not harm them. Do not test them, because once you do, you will never escape. They will find you. They will hunt you. They will bring you to answer for what you did. And all your power, all your pride, all your empire will not save you. The verdict came 3 hours later. Guilty on all counts. The sentence was execution, to be carried out publicly. Not out of cruelty, but as part of the message humanity was sending to the galaxy. A week before the execution, Ambassador Kethrax visited Earth. He was very old now, near the end of his long life. He asked to speak with the human leadership. They met him in a quiet garden in New Geneva. The human Secretary of Defense, the head of the military, and Ambassador Morrison all came to hear what he had to say. I tried to warn them, Kethrax said, his voice weak with age. I tried to tell the council what would happen. We know, Morrison said gently. We have always known you tried to help. But now the galaxy fears you, Kethrax continued. They see what you have done to the Krellian Empire and they are terrified. Was this what you wanted? Morrison was quiet for a long moment. We wanted justice for our dead. We wanted to ensure this never happens again. If fear is the price of that protection, then yes, we accept it. The Krellian Empire is destroyed. Billions suffer who had nothing to do with New Harmony. And 3,000 died who had nothing to do with any conflict, Morrison replied. Families destroyed, children murdered, dreams ended. We did not start this, Ambassador. We did not choose this war, but we will finish it. Kethrax closed his eyes. I am dying. My heart is failing. I will not live much longer. But I fear what the galaxy will become now. You have shown that humans cannot be attacked without terrible consequences. But you have also shown that humans will destroy entire civilizations to achieve justice. What happens when the next conflict arises? What happens when someone attacks you again? Because they will. There are always fools who do not learn. Then they will learn the same lesson, said the Secretary of Defense. We will hunt them too. Forever, if necessary. The old Valerian opened his eyes. This is what I feared. This is why I tried to warn them. Not because I feared for humanity, but because I feared for everyone else. You are the hunters who never stop. and now the galaxy knows it. 3 days later, Admiral Voxtar was executed. The event was broadcast across every human world and to anyone in the galaxy who chose to watch. Millions did. They saw the former admiral of the Krellian Empire face his sentence with dignity. His last words were simple. "I am sorry for what I did. But my apology means nothing to the dead. Let my fate be a warning to all who would harm innocents." After the execution, Maya Chen stood with Marcus Webb and other survivors, looking at the memorial that had been built for New Harmony. 3,047 names carved in stone. Every person remembered. Every life honored. "Is it over?" Marcus asked quietly. "Not yet," Maya replied. "There are still 7 names on the list. 7 who participated but have not been found. And when we find them all, then it will be over. Then New Harmony can rest." But across the galaxy, other species were learning. The lesson that Kethrax had tried to teach so many years ago, the lesson was simple and terrible. Do not attack the humans. Do not harm their people. Do not test their patience, because they will hunt you forever, and all your power will not save you. The Broxian ambassador, who had yawned during Kethrax's warning all those years ago, now gave speeches about the importance of maintaining good relations with humanity. The aggressive species that had planned expansions near human space quietly changed their strategies. Military academies across the galaxy began teaching about New Harmony as a case study in what not to do. Ambassador Kethrax died 6 months after the execution, peacefully in his sleep. His last thoughts were of the warning he had given, of the price the galaxy had paid for not listening, and of the future that would be shaped by humanity's refusal to forget their dead. His final words, spoken to his aide who sat with him at the end, were these: "I tried to tell them. I tried to warn them. But sometimes the hardest lessons are the ones that must be learned through pain. The galaxy knows now. They know what humans are. They know what happens when you hurt them. Perhaps that knowledge will prevent the next tragedy. Perhaps my warning, paid for in Krellian blood, will finally be heard." The galaxy had received its message, carved in the ruins of an empire, written in 12 years of relentless hunting, spoken in the verdict of a war crimes trial. Watched by billions, humanity protects its own, remembers its dead, and pursues justice to the ends of the universe. The question now was not whether the galaxy had learned the lesson. The question was whether anyone would be foolish enough to test it again. Time would tell. But for now, across the stars, species looked at their neighbors and remembered, never attack the humans. They will hunt you forever. But this time there was something different in the air. These were the last ones. After this, the list would be complete. After 50 years, New Harmony could finally rest. The executions were scheduled for a week later. Maya Chen was too ill to attend in person, so she watched from her hospital bed, surrounded by family and friends who had supported her through 50 years of hunting. When it was over, when the last 3 names were finally crossed off the list, she closed her eyes and smiled. "It is done," she whispered. "It is finally done." Marcus Webb stood at the memorial on New Harmony, his hand on the stone where the last 3 names had been added. Every perpetrator accounted for. Every person who had participated in the massacre brought to justice. "We found them all," he said to the names carved in stone. "Every single one. You are not forgotten. You will never be forgotten." Around the galaxy, the news spread quickly. 50 years after the attack, the hunt was complete. Every person who had participated in the New Harmony massacre had been found and brought to justice. The message was unmistakable and eternal. Attack humanity at your peril, for they will hunt you forever and they will never stop until justice is served. But there was a cost. Maya Chen died 3 days after the executions. She had held on just long enough to see the task completed, then let go. Marcus Webb followed her 6 months later, his life's purpose fulfilled. An entire generation of humans had devoted themselves to the hunt. They had sacrificed normal lives, normal careers, normal dreams. They had become hunters, trackers, analysts, prosecutors. They had made New Harmony their life's work. Now they were passing away, and the younger generation was left to grapple with the legacy. Sarah Kim, who had been Maya Chen's assistant, stood before a university auditorium full of students. She was giving a lecture on the New Harmony incident, 52 years after it happened. "Why did we do it?" a student asked. "Why spend 50 years hunting 3 old soldiers? Was it worth the cost?" Sarah considered the question carefully. "Ask yourself this. If we had stopped after 40 years after finding most but not all of the perpetrators, what message would that have sent? That if you hurt humans, you just need to hide long enough and we will give up? That some murders can be forgotten if enough time passes? But entire generations devoted their lives to this," the student persisted. Maya Chen never had children. Marcus Webb never remarried after his wife died. Hundreds of people gave up normal lives to be hunters. Was that not too high a price? "They chose that price," Sarah replied. "They chose it because they understood something important. Civilizations are built on principles. One of humanity's principles is that we protect our own. We remember our dead. We seek justice no matter how long it takes. If we had abandoned that principle, we would have become something different, something lesser." Another student raised their hand. "But now the galaxy fears us. Other species avoid conflict with us not out of respect but out of terror. They have seen what we did to the Krellian Empire. Is that the legacy we want?" Sarah nodded. "Fair question. And here is the answer. Would you prefer we were seen as weak? As species that could be attacked without consequence? How many more New Harmonies would there have been if we had not responded the way we did?" The room was quiet. "Since New Harmony," Sarah continued, "how many human colonies have been attacked?" "None," a student answered softly. "Exactly. None. Not one in 50 years. Because the galaxy learned the lesson we taught them. The price of that lesson was high, yes. The Krellian Empire was destroyed. Billions suffered who were not directly responsible for New Harmony. But millions of humans who might have died in future attacks lived because potential attackers remembered what happens when you harm humanity." "Is fear respect?" the student asked. "No," Sarah admitted. "But it is better than being seen as prey. And over time, fear can become respect if we are fair, if we are just, if we only use our power to defend ourselves and never to oppress others." That is the challenge for your generation. To take the legacy of New Harmony and transform it from a story of vengeance into a story of justice. Years passed. A century after New Harmony, the incident had become history. The survivors were all gone. The hunters had passed away. New generations of humans grew up knowing the story but not feeling the pain. The rebuilt colony of New Harmony thrived, home now to 50,000 people. The memorial stood at its heart, 3,047 names that would never be forgotten. Schools brought children there to learn. Historians studied it. Artists created works inspired by it. And across the galaxy, every species taught their young about the humans and the lesson of New Harmony. They taught it differently depending on their perspective. Some focused on the justice of the hunt. Some focused on the cost of the vengeance. Some focused on the warning that was ignored. But all of them agreed on one fundamental truth. Humans remember. They remember their dead. They remember their fallen. They remember every wrong done to them. And they will pursue justice across stars and centuries. Never stopping, never forgetting, never forgiving those who harm their people. 200 years after New Harmony, a strange signal was detected in deep space. An automated human probe, launched during the height of the hunt, had been drifting through the void for 2 centuries. It had been programmed with the genetic markers of the 3 Krellians who had hidden for 50 years, set to search any world it passed. The probe had detected something. A genetic match. Impossible, of course. Those 3 had been found and executed 150 years ago. But the probe did not know that. It had been launched before they were captured, and it continued its mission, faithfully, mindlessly, eternally. The probe activated its transmission system and sent a message back to human space. Target located. Beginning tracking protocol. A human monitoring station received the signal. The technician who saw it laughed, then felt a chill. The probe would continue searching forever, even though its mission was long complete. It would drift through space for millions of years if necessary, looking for targets that no longer existed. It was a perfect metaphor for humanity's approach to justice. Even automated, even mindless, even when the need was long past, the hunt continued. Because that was what humans did. They never stopped. They never forgot. And somewhere in the galaxy, A young Krellian student learning about their species' history read about New Harmony and understood something important. His ancestors had tested humanity and destroyed an empire in the process. The ruins of that empire still existed, a permanent reminder of what happened when someone made the mistake of attacking humans. The warning that Ambassador Kethrax had tried to give so many centuries ago was finally, truly heard, not because people wanted to hear it, but because the price of ignoring it had been paid in full. Humans do not forgive. Humans do not forget. Humans hunt forever. It was not a boast. It was not a threat. It was simply the truth, carved into the fabric of galactic history by the events of New Harmony and the 50-year hunt that followed. And in knowing that truth, the galaxy found a strange kind of peace, because everyone understood the rules now. Do not attack the humans. Do not harm their people. Do not test their patience. Do that, and humanity would be the best neighbor anyone could ask for. Fair, generous, creative, and kind. But violate that simple rule. Harm their innocence, spill their blood, and you would learn what it meant to be hunted by beings who would never ever stop. The legacy of New Harmony was not just the memory of the dead. It was the promise made to them, kept for 50 years and beyond. You will not be forgotten. Your killers will answer. Justice will be served, and that promise once made was eternal. 50 years after the attack on New Harmony, the galaxy had changed in ways both obvious and subtle. The ruins of the Krellian Empire served as a monument to what happened when someone tested humanity's patience. Young species learned about New Harmony in their history classes. Diplomats spoke carefully when dealing with human representatives. Military planners marked human space as forbidden territory for aggression. But the hunt was not over. 3 names remained on the list. 3 Krellian soldiers who had participated in the massacre and somehow managed to disappear so completely that even 50 years of searching had not found them. Maya Chen was 74 years old. Her hair was silver now, her face lined with the years, but her eyes still held the same determination they had when she was a 14-year-old girl watching her home burn. She had dedicated her entire adult life to the hunt, working with human intelligence services, analyzing leads, following trails that went cold decades ago. She sat in her office on Earth, reviewing old files for perhaps the 1000th time. Her assistant, a young woman named Sarah Kim, who had been born years after New Harmony, brought her tea. "You should rest, Director," Sarah said gently. "You have done enough." "It is not finished," Maya replied, not looking up from her screen. 3 names. After 50 years, 3 names remain. Perhaps they are dead. Perhaps they died years ago and we just do not have confirmation. Perhaps, Maya admitted, but until we know for certain, the work continues. New Harmony deserves that much. In another part of the galaxy, Marcus Webb walked through the rebuilt colony that now stood where New Harmony once existed. At 77 years old, he moved slowly, but he still made the pilgrimage every year. The new colony was thriving, home to 10,000 people who knew the history of the place they lived. At the center of the colony stood the memorial. 3,047 names carved in imperishable stone. Visitors came from across human space to see it, to remember, to understand why humanity had spent 50 years hunting across the galaxy. Marcus stood before the memorial, his hand touching his parents' names. He had been 15 when they died. He was an old man now, and the pain had dulled but never disappeared. "Dad, Mom," he whispered. 3 names left. We are still looking. We will never stop looking. A young couple with a child approached the memorial. The father read the names aloud to his daughter, explaining what had happened here. The girl, perhaps 5 years old, looked up at Marcus. "Why do we remember?" she asked in the innocent voice of childhood. Marcus knelt down, his old bones creaking. "We remember because forgetting would dishonor those who died. We remember because the price of forgetting is that it might happen again. We remember because humans do not abandon their dead." The little girl nodded seriously, as if understanding something important even if she could not fully grasp it yet. Far away, on a forgotten world in the outer reaches of explored space, 3 elderly Krellians lived in isolation. They had been hiding for 50 years, ever since fleeing the Krellian Empire when it became clear that their former leaders were cooperating with human hunters. Their names were Toxavan, Krelmos, and Shantir. They had been young soldiers at New Harmony, following orders, doing what they were told. They had not questioned the morality of the attack. They had not thought about the consequences. They had simply followed their training and their commander. Now they were old. They had spent half a century looking over their shoulders, jumping at every sound, trusting no one. They had changed their identities so many times they sometimes forgot who they once were. They lived on a world with no name, barely catalogued, supporting themselves through subsistence farming. "Do you think they have stopped looking?" Krelmos asked one evening as they sat around a fire. He was the youngest of the three, though at 72 he was no longer young at all. "The humans never stop," Toxvan replied. He was 81, his armor-plated skin faded and scarred. "We knew this when we ran. They will search until they find us or until the last human who remembers New Harmony dies." "That could be centuries," Shantir said. She was 79, her once powerful frame bent with age. "Humans pass the hunt from generation to generation. We may hide forever and still be found. Then we die here," Toxavan said. "Hidden, forgotten, but free." "We are not free," Krelmo said quietly. "We are prisoners of what we did. We have been prisoners for 50 years. They sat in silence. 3 old soldiers carrying the weight of actions taken a lifetime ago, when they were young and foolish and thought themselves invincible. But humanity's memory was long, and their technology was advancing. New methods of data analysis, new ways of cross-referencing information, new algorithms for finding patterns in decades of intelligence gathering. What was impossible to find 20 years ago might be findable now. What was hidden 30 years ago might be revealed today. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A xenoarchaeologist studying ancient ruins on a forgotten world noticed something odd in her survey data. There were 3 heat signatures that did not match any known native life. The patterns suggested intelligent habitation, but there were no records of anyone living in that region. She reported it to local authorities who investigated. They found 3 elderly Krellians living in isolation, using false identities that had somehow survived 50 years of scrutiny. When their genetic markers were analyzed and checked against databases, the match came back positive. Maya Chen was in a meeting when the alert came through. She stopped mid-sentence, reading the message on her screen. For a moment, she could not breathe. "Director?" her assistant asked. "What is it?" "They found them," Maya whispered. "All 3. They are alive." The room erupted. People who had worked on the New Harmony case for decades suddenly had confirmation that their years of effort had not been in vain. The hunt was finally, truly coming to an end. Marcus Webb was sitting in his garden when he got the call. He listened in silence as Maya explained that the last 3 names had been found. When she finished, he simply said, "Thank you," and ended the call. Then he sat in his garden and wept. 50 years. 50 years of carrying the weight of the unfinished task, and now finally it would be complete. The capture operation was handled by a special team of human agents, many of whom had spent their entire careers working on New Harmony cases. They traveled to the unnamed world and found the 3 Krellians in their simple home. Toxavan saw them coming. He could have fought. He could have tried to run. Instead, he walked out to meet them, his hands raised. "We know why you are here," he said simply. "We have been expecting you for 50 years. The team leader, a woman named Commander Elizabeth Sato, nodded. "Toxavan, Krelmos, and Shantir, you are under arrest for war crimes committed at New Harmony 50 years ago. You will be transported to stand trial." "After all this time?" Krelmos asked, emerging from the house with Shantir. We hoped that we would forget," Sato said. "Humans do not forget. Not in 50 years. Not in 500. The people of New Harmony deserve justice. You denied them life. We will not deny them justice." The 3 old Krellians were transported to Earth. The journey took 3 weeks. During that time, they were treated with the same correct, cold efficiency that all New Harmony perpetrators received. No torture, no abuse. Just the inevitable progress toward judgment. Maya Chen insisted on attending the trial, despite her advanced age and failing health. She sat in the same courtroom where Admiral Voxtar had been tried decades before. Around her were other survivors, other family members of the dead, many of them old now, all of them determined to see this through. The trial was shorter than Voxtar's had been. The evidence was clear. The 3 Krellians did not deny their participation. They sat in the defendant's area and listened as prosecutors detailed their actions at New Harmony. "I was 22. Toxavon said when given a chance to speak. I did not think about what we were doing. I just followed orders. I saw humans die and I felt nothing. They were just targets, just obstacles. I did not understand what we had done until later, when I saw what humanity became in response. Then I understood. Then I ran. And you hid for 50 years, the prosecutor said, while the families of your victims lived with their pain, while survivors rebuilt their lives around the hole you created, while humanity spent half a century hunting for you. Yes, Toxavon said simply, I am not asking for mercy. I know there is none. I just want the galaxy to know that what we did at New Harmony was evil. I know that now. I knew it then if I had been honest with myself. We were not soldiers that day. We were murderers, and I have spent 50 years paying for that truth. The verdict came quickly. Guilty on all counts. The sentence was the same as it had been for every other New Harmony perpetrator. Execution.